stop learning, your brain actually starts to disconnect itself. So any of you that own businesses or work in big businesses, you want to encourage cross-training because you want to keep the brains of your employees nimble, and that happens when they're always learning something new. People who just do the same thing over and over and over again, they're not exercising their brain. Your diet really matters. You have to be a wise calorie spender, calories count. We talked about that. Omega-3 fatty acids. Green tea has some really wonderful cognitive enhancing benefits. In fact, theanine from green tea helps calm the brain and helps you focus at the same time. So we have a number of supplements I'll talk about through the weekend, but one of them I like a lot is our Focus and Energy product because it has green tea, rhodiola, ashwagandha, ginseng. So they're adaptogens. They help your brain sort of calm if it needs to or stimulates if it needs to, and it's sort of our natural form of a stimulant.
Doesn't green tea have caffeine? That's the first thing I want to know.
Green tea has about half the caffeine as coffee. The green tea in our product has no caffeine. But, you know, if you have a cup of coffee a day, it's really not the end of the world. If you have 6, it's the end of the world. It's not good for you. Right? So if you have 1, and often it's not the coffee that's the problem. It's all the crap you put in the coffee. The artificial sweeteners and, you know, if you have the dairy creamer, you remember in the grocery store, always in the break room, there's this thing of dairy creamer. Read the ingredients. They will horrify you. You will not recognize any of them as food. I love that. So the question, I need to repeat questions for our friends in the on the web. The question was grande or venti. That's the problem. We are supersizing everything, and a venti is really 3 cups of coffee. And the American Psychiatric Association has a whole term called caffeineism. If you drink 300 milligrams of caffeine, because then you can get addicted to it, and that's about the amount of caffeine in a venti. So it's like, so no, Starbucks can be okay if you get green tea. They actually have a number of things that are fine. You just have to focus. When you go, focus and read the labels. I mean, would you ever buy something you didn't know the cost? Of course not. I mean, unless you were just stupid. So you have to start reading the labels because what you're doing is you're finding out what's the cost of this thing I'm eating. And new study, I don't know, you guys must think I'm really bored because all these studies happen this week. New study, people who read the labels, which after this weekend you will be reading the labels, people who read the labels weigh less than people who don't read the labels. And you got reading as a skill, what, 2nd grade? Not for these words, though, because these are like, you know, if your grandmother wouldn't have recognized it as food, don't eat it. So exercise, gratitude. We did this really interesting study. So we took a woman, she was a psychologist, her name was Noelle Nelson, and she was writing a book called The Power of Appreciation. And she said, I want to see my scan when I'm appreciating my life. And it actually looked pretty healthy. But I said, well, we can't stop there. We need to scan you when you hate your life. She said, well, I don't want to do that. It'll make me feel bad. I'm like, this is for science. I am good with guilt. Right? I mean, growing up in our house, you had to pass Guilt 101, Guilt 102, Advanced Guilt. And so she did that. So 20 minutes before her scan, she sat and she meditated on the things she hated. And what she did it a very specific way. My dog is sick. And because my dog is sick, I'm not going to be able to go to work because I have to take care of the dog. But if I don't go to work, I'm going to get fired. And if I get fired, I won't have any money to take care of the dog. The dog is going to die. I'm going to be depressed, unemployed. I live in Malibu. Depressed, unemployed people can't afford to be in Malibu. So she did this whole sort of fortune telling in the bad way that many people do who get sick. And then we scanned her. And it was so interesting. Her cerebellum dropped out. It's the coordination part of your brain and also thought coordination part. Her left temporal lobe dropped. That's one of the parts we have found associated with violence. So get negative thinking in your brain doesn't do you any favors. So you have to focus on what you're grateful for. One of the exercises I want you to do every day, write down 5 things you're grateful for. It's even more critical when you're stressed. There was a study at the University of Pennsylvania that said people who did that exercise within 3 weeks noticed a significant difference in their level of happiness. So, if you struggle with depression, it means your brain is vulnerable. It's not your fault. There are all sorts of causes. But it means you have to really gird yourself and protect your reserve. And one of the ways to do it is focus on gratitude. It's not the only thing. You can't focus on being grateful for the cupcakes you're eating. And stress management. We will talk a lot about managing stress through the weekend. All right. So the essence of brain health is this. It's Chloe's game. Chloe is our daughter. She's a doll, strong-willed, red hair like her mother. And when she was 2 years old, she and I started to play this game together. I call it Chloe's game. Is this good for my brain or bad for it? And so, for example, if I say avocados, she'll say 2 thumbs up. If I say blueberries, she'll ask me if they're organic. Because blueberries are the one fruit, they're considered part of the dirty dozen. They hold more pesticides than almost any fruit. Very important. I know there is a big study that came out this week, and the headline was organic doesn't make any difference. But if you actually read the study, what you would see is that non-organic food had 5 times the level of pesticides in it. And so the conclusion for the reporters, they all needed a brain scan. Because I'm like, well, read the damn study. Would you want 5 times the level of pesticides in your body only if you were suicidal? If I say hitting a soccer ball with your head, she'll go thumbs down, no way. Ice cream, too much sugar. Sassing back your red-headed mother, oh, that's not good at all. Okay, are you guys ready? So come up here, let me introduce you. So this is my friend and colleague, Cyrus Raji. Cyrus is a MD, PhD, which means he's like even smarter than most people. Or more masochistic.
I think it's the second part, Daniel.
Cyrus is one of my heroes. He is currently at UCLA in the Department of Radiology. When he was a medical student, he published, I mean, literally groundbreaking research that we talked about earlier. And what I told them, and I've told you personally, is his research really changed my life and helped change the direction that my professional life has gone. Yes, we still scan your brain, but we have to get you physically healthy too, because your physical health has a dramatic impact on your brain health. And so he's really published some wonderful studies. I'll let him tell you about it. And so thank him for being here. It's really a treat for all of us.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Daniel Amen for the joy and privilege of coming and speaking with you all today. And it's humbling to hear that someone like him, who has been such a pioneer in this field and in taking brain imaging into clinical practice and using it to improve the care of the brain and the mind, feels that my research has done so much to improve his life and change the way he treats patients and helps people. So it's very humbling to hear that. And I will try to do justice to all of the wonderful things he said about me in the talk I'm about to present. And the talk I'm about to present is called Why an Aging Brain is Optional. So who am I? So I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And one of the reasons I do what I do is because of the experience I had with my grandmother. She was a teacher for 40 years. She spoke 5 languages, but unfortunately, she had health habits that weren't good for her. She was a smoker, and near the end of her life, she developed several strokes and had dementia. And it was at that time that I actually spent the most time with her because she came to live with our family. I was 11 years old at the time, and I had heard so many wonderful things about her growing up, but I hadn't had the chance to see her a lot. I had heard about how beautiful and cultured and versatile she was with her mind, but when I first met her, I encountered a woman who couldn't even remember who her daughter was. She couldn't speak the majority of the languages that she had learned. She wasn't able to articulate her love for us because she had this degenerative process ravaging her brain. And that wasn't the worst part for me to see. The worst part for me to see was that the medical profession at that time wasn't able to